Let's go to our friend here on the phone. It's Ricardo. Hi, Ricardo. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect, man.
Okay.
Sorry for the bad signal again.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's get back to it. You were saying the win was a 10 out of 10. Did he do everything you guys wanted him to, Marlon, on Saturday?
I mean, you always game plan, and you always try to give the fighter like a clear picture of where the slippery slopes are, and like where they should how they should try to win. But you never really go according to plan. But Marlon is just the type of guy that he could make something special out of anything, and he's starting to really show that in the UFC. He's starting to really have the performances that he was having late in his career at World Series of Fighting. Like he just beat like three like world class guys, and the entire fighting time doesn't equal around, man. So it's pretty impressive. Like I was like impressed. I see the guy sparring all the time, but one round he's going with Frankie, another round he's going with Zabit, and then he's going with some other Russian dude, and you forget just how good these guys are, and then they get out there, and I'm like, wow, like I'm taken back just by his performance for sure.
Okay, so a few questions about this. Obviously, he's the top contender at this point. What do you think was the difference, though, between the first Assuncao fight and this one? I mean, yes, he won more quickly, but in terms of how good he is and his approach, like what was the major difference?
I mean, I think that when you go into the UFC and you start to fight there, I think there's without a doubt like a step up in competition. Besides maybe like one or two or three guys in the organizations like outside of the UFC, so almost every fight you're gonna get a really really tough guy, and once you step into the top five, man, it's like you roll the dice. You know what I mean? Like every one of these main events is just so hard to keep winning. Like as a coaching staff, like me and Mark, like we go into these fights. It's a main event with Frankie, then it's a main event with Marlon, then it's like a main event with Eddie, and it's hard to put back-to-back wins. But so what I think Marlon has done, like not necessarily doing like three main events in the world, but like three top 5, top 10 guys in a row. And be able to win in that fashion, I think he's just more comfortable. He knows what he needs to do. He's more comfortable. Like he's not holding himself back. So I think time, it's experience. The experience, I think, is the big key. He's able to let go more and truly be like everything that he can be as a fighter.
When I asked you this before, but we got the connection cut off, it occurred to me that like Marlon is so good at so many things. Decision making, he's got crisp boxing, his footwork is good, he sets everything up, but he's like a ridiculous athlete. Why don't you think he gets credit, or more credit, I should say, for being maybe one of the best athletes in the UFC?
I think that, yeah, and I agree with you, man. Like he's one of the most athletic guys I've ever seen. Like some of the things that you see Marlon doing in the gym, just like messing around, I think that he doesn't get the credit because Marlon is so technically sound. Like his defense is so good, and his power, he's got so much power. Yet like he's never really super flashy. He's just devastating. You know what I mean? Like you take a guy, he'll do. Even Edson's big spinning kick knockout. That was devastating, but there was also like super flashy, and Marlon, without flash, but with decisive violence, he's able to finish these guys. So always people are going to think that he's an athletic guy. Maybe they're just going to think that he hits that hard or he's been in some fights. He's finished guys so quick that he hasn't really had to show his athleticism,
By the way, have you gone back and watched the fight on video yet?
I haven't. I was actually at the airport leaving because I left right after the fight. I went straight to the airport in Fortaleza and I saw like the finish. But yeah, just that finishing combo where he slips and then he throws like an uppercut and a hook, and Assuncao steps back, drops his hand, he hits the first right hand, and then he just changes the speed. He hits another 1-2. It was incredible, man. Like just the speed and power in that, and to be able to follow up and finish, it was just. I had my mouth open at the end. I was like, man, how did you just do all that in like 2 minutes? It's crazy.
Okay, here's one thing, and I'm legitimately asking because I have no idea. Obviously, he won via mounted arm in guillotine. But I went back and I watched this. You're a black belt, a high-level one at that. Assuncao had both his hands free and then brought them both to the inside to defend. Why did he do that?
Man, I think that when Marlon started to squeeze and he pulled guard, he was free, and I think that Assuncao brought the arm down to try to block the hip as he rolled, you know. And Marlon was smart. Like he stepped the leg on the same side of the choke, because that's the one that you kind of, you know, you want the guy to be able to trap him there. And like on the roll, he was able to end up above and climb and get above the arm. So Assuncao's arms were strapped. And then he had to pull that arm out from the arm that was stuck in the guillotine to be able to get the finish, you know, so to be able to tap. So he was pretty impressive. I couldn't really see from the angle that I was. I just could see Marlon, like, dropping the hips and him having to pull arm to tap. I don't know. A lot of times in the transition, guys don't try to do that. But as you roll, you know, you end up above the arms. We've seen a couple of finishes like that with Gary Tonon. Has done a couple of finishes like that, too.
Interesting. Okay, I'll go back and look at it another time because that one kind of confused me. It was a little weird, but it was devastating all the same. I mean, you get a tap from Raphael Assuncao, you earn it, and he certainly did. Now that leads us to the next step. You have got to like his chances against anyone in that weight class. Tell me how, in your mind, that you think Marlon matches up with TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, I just think the raw power and defense of Marlon, you know, and I think Dillashaw is going to be trying to like move around and you know, kind of come in from angles and things like that. And I think honestly, I think that's a perfect style for Marlon. I think Dillashaw's weakest spot is his wrestling. To be honest, you know what I mean? Like he's not the type of guy that could, you know, threaten with a whole lot of takedowns. Like, he could take down like a couple of guys, but he's gotten taken down a lot, and I don't think that he has like that takedown button. You know what I mean? That, you know, I want to take this guy down, I'm going to take this guy down. So, man, if you're going to fight Marlon standing for 25 minutes, I just think it's hard, you know, like, not to take anything away from TJ, man. Like, I'm a huge fan of TJ, man. He's amazing. You know, some of the things that he has done. He's probably one of my favorite guys to watch, like his striking, you know, he's like in and out, and he's very elusive, and he has a lot of tools, but I don't consider him like a super complete guy. And man, like in this weight class, if you're not going to threaten with everything, I think that was the huge evolution of Cejudo in his second fight with Mighty Mouse, where he was able to threaten the takedowns. He was able to hit him. He was able to kick him. And I think that's what made him be able to beat Dillashaw. You know, like Dillashaw had to worry about the takedown. He had to worry about all these other things. And I think in a fight where, you know, Marlon and TJ, I think the winner is going to be the guy that's able to be more complete and threaten with different things. You know, and I honestly think it's a great matchup for Marlon's style.
How much of the loss that TJ just suffered, how much of that do you attribute to the weight cut?
Man, you never know. You know, like it's like that's the thing about the sport, man. Like I said it earlier. You know, like you take the top 2 or 3 or 5 guys in each weight class, and it's literally like a roll of the dice. You know what I mean? Like that's and a lot of times that roll of the dice is what happens on that day or what happens on that week. As far as the weight cut, I think that if I had to nitpick on something, I think the weight cut might have affected him, because we haven't seen him, you know, get rocked, you know, like that. And Cejudo is like a 125er. He's a tough guy, and you know, every wrestler is strong as hell and has really good right hands, but he's not known for like devastating power or anything like that, you know. So it makes me wonder if the wake up was just too much, and just from personal experience, if I had to say anything, I think the wake up definitely affected him. You know, that you take the weight, that doesn't mean that you're going to be, you know, 100% hydrated during the fight. Like no matter what the scale is telling you, no matter what all the science is telling you, there are just certain things in fighting are just intangible, you know.
And then that led to the I won't call Marlon's post-fight speech hilarious, although certain admissions about his biological condition were a little bit worth chuckling about in the way that he described him. But in all seriousness, I guess he was sick. Can you tell us how sick he was during the week?
And he was so sick, he didn't tell any one of us because he didn't want to worry us. You know, like we got to Brazil, and like, you know, like we knew that he had felt sick, but, you know, like not like the extent, you know, because we got there Friday, he had already made weight. I did notice that he looked lighter than he normally does, you know, but he never complained to me, never said anything. But then as far as his speech, that's Marlon, you know, like he sometimes can be a little emotional, and he's very sincere 100% of the time. You know, he's one of the most like simple and humble guys, and just very sincere. You know, like he wears his heart on his sleeve in everything he does, and he's the type of guy that, you know, what you see is what you get. And if he's gonna talk about diarrhea on, you know, like the whole world's gonna hear about his medical condition, then the whole world's gonna hear about his medical condition. But that's just who he is as a person. He's very sincere.
Okay, but in the end, he got the W. You know, here's the only thing about this, Ricardo, that I do think works against him. You know, he's headlining these shows, and that was a great show in Brazil. Not merely his win, but the vibe was great. And from a spectator's position on, you know, in the United States, watching on the ESPN Plus app, it looked phenomenal. But he's got all these wins, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Not exactly a household name here in the United States. Like, do you think he is going to get the title shot next? Do you think he's done enough? Because on the popularity side, the wind is not exactly at his back.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a weird time in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like there's no consistency. You know, like there's no like, oh, you know, if you do this, you know, that guarantees you a title shot. Or, you know, if you're ranked this high and you beat somebody that's ranked this high, there's really like no consistency. It's the first year with the ESPN deal, so, you know, we don't really know like what's going to happen as far as like what's going to dictate that. If they're going to bring the big fights to pay-per-view and try to sell more pay-per-views, or if they're going to do big fights on ESPN. Like, you never know like what they're doing. Like, to me, that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed since the new ownership took place. Just like, you know, you're just trying to observe, and, you know, of course you want to win, and if you want to be a champion, and that part, I think there's been like a little lack of consistency, like all these super fights, and you know, Connor's kind of like added to that a little bit, and often in a good way, you know, like if you're gonna see these huge fights, then I want to see the best fights. I want to see the best fighters fight each other, and I do think that the TJ Dillashaw with Cejudo was a very interesting fight. But now what? Now you have a champion that just lost to somebody from a lower weight class. And what does that do for the entire division? And, man, Dillashaw is probably one of the best 135ers, is one of the best 35ers in history. So now what? You know what I mean? Like, as far as where does that put Marlon? I think Marlon's in a really good position, man. You know, like, I think that the best position you could be is to do everything right with what you have control of. You know, like he's like beating the best guys like decisively and, you know, violently. You know, like I think that people look at him and you see a special fighter that's from this new generation of Brazilian guys, where there aren't many special fighters, man. I have to say that, and I am from Brazil. You know, like I see a huge gap between, you know, the generation of, you know, Anderson and Vitor and you know, Minotauro and even Damian, who's now on the later end of his career. You know what I mean? He's never won a title, but he's been one of the most successful guys in UFC history as far as like finishes and fights. But, you know, I think Marlon's great. I think Marlon's going to end up being like a superstar here in Brazil, you know, just because of how good he is. And the more he fights, the more people are going to see it. And people in Brazil here, they lack, like, you know, someone to really look up to now, especially as Aldo's probably like Aldo's last year. I think he's in a great position, and you know, just got to keep working hard, have patience, and, you know, you're going to get what you're supposed to get.
Well, if he doesn't get the next title shot, it'll be a crime. Not saying crimes don't happen, but it would be a crime if he didn't get it. He looked phenomenal. Well, I'll just say this, Ricardo, congratulations. You guys are doing great things over here in New Jersey, and I was just blown away by Marlon. I hope the UFC feels the same as I do, because that guy is special. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys so much for having me. And yeah, man, I want to see him fight against. I want to see all our guys fight against you. You know, like I'm a huge fan of our guys. Like sometimes I forget like how good they are. The Pete's up next. We got Eddie like at the end of March, and I can't wait to see Frankie fight again. So it's exciting times for us for sure. Thank you so much for having me.